Mid-February 1943, Field Marshal Owen Rommel sat in his command post near the Tunisian border, writing a letter to his wife Lucy. His forces had just smashed through American positions at Kasserine Pass. Outside, the Afrika Korps was celebrating victory. Inside, Rommel was analyzing what he had learned about the Americans. The letter was blunt. Rommel wrote that the Americans were soft, lacked proper training, and their officers made amateur mistakes that would have gotten them court-martialed in any European army. Rommel had just watched American forces break and run at Kasserine Pass. Over 6,000 American casualties in 6 days. Entire battalions surrendered. Equipment abandoned on the battlefield. It was the kind of collapse Rommel had seen from the French in 1940. The Americans didn't just lose at Kasserine, they were humiliated. Soldiers who had grown up on stories of World War I heroism were suddenly questioning if they were cut out for this. Rommel didn't just see a tactical opening. He thought he was witnessing the American spirit breaking in real time. He wrote to Lucy that if Germany could launch another offensive within weeks, they could push the Americans into the sea before they learned how to fight properly. The assessment was shared with Berlin. Exploit American weakness immediately. Don't give them time to adapt. Rommel's assessment wasn't based on prejudice. It was based on observed performance. At Kasserine Pass, American forces had demonstrated multiple critical failures. Their commanders positioned units poorly. Radio discipline collapsed under pressure. Coordination between infantry and armor was non-existent. When German forces attacked, American units retreated without orders, creating cascading panic. The American Second Corps commander, Major General Lloyd, had built his headquarters in a canyon 70 miles behind the front lines. He communicated by radio and telephone without seeing the battlefield. His orders were confused and contradictory. German intelligence officers compiled detailed reports. American equipment was adequate. American soldiers fought bravely when cornered. But American command structure was amateur. These were not soldiers who had faced the Wehrmacht before. They were learning warfare in real time against Germany's best. Rommel calculated it would take the Americans at least 6 months to fix their leadership problems, probably 12 months to develop effective doctrine. If Germany struck again in March, the results would be similar to Kasserine. German armored doctrine had proven itself against every opponent since 1939. Concentrate superior force at a weak point. Break through with armored spearheads. Exploit the breakthrough with mobile formations. Force the enemy to retreat or be inspired. This doctrine had shattered French armies in 6 weeks. It had destroyed Soviet armies in 1941. It had pushed British forces across North Africa twice. The formula worked because most armies fought defensively, trying to hold lines that German mobility could bypass. Kasserine Pass had proven the Americans fought the same way. They established defensive positions and waited to be attacked. When German armor concentrated against weak sectors, American forces retreated rather than counterattack. Rommel studied the terrain around Guettar in central Tunisia. It was perfect for another demonstration. If German forces attacked there in late March, they would catch American units still recovering from Kasserine. The psychological advantage alone would be decisive. Berlin approved Rommel's assessment. One more offensive would break American morale completely. Then Germany could shift forces to face the British, while Americans shipped their defeated army home. German intelligence reported a command change in early March. Lieutenant General George S. Patton Jr. had assumed command of 2nd Corps on March 6, 1943. The same corps that had collapsed at Kasserine Pass. When Patton arrived at 2nd Corps' headquarters, the atmosphere changed before he even spoke. He rolled in with a siren-blaring motorcade, wearing his famous ivory-handled revolvers. He didn't just issue orders. He issued an ultimatum. The days of the soft American were over. Patton forced men to wear ties and regulation helmets in the desert heat, not out of vanity, but to remind them they were professionals, not defeated refugees. Officers who arrived without proper uniform were fined on the spot. Soldiers who didn't salute were reprimanded publicly. One general couldn't fix systemic problems in 3 weeks. That was the German assessment. Patton might improve morale slightly. He might enforce better discipline. But he couldn't teach an entire corps new doctrine in less than a month. Rommel's health was failing. His stomach ailments and exhaustion were worsening, but his tactical mind was sharp. He reviewed the Guettar attack plan one final time before turning operational command over to General Hans-Jürgen von Arnim. The plan assumed American defensive tactics. The plan assumed American hesitation under pressure. The plan assumed that 3 weeks wasn't enough time to transform an army. Every assumption was logical based on German experience against every other opponent. March 22, 1943. German forces prepared to attack American positions near El. The German order of battle included the 10th Panzer Division with Mark V tanks and the experienced Italian Centauro Division. German commanders briefed their units on expected American responses. Americans would defend from fixed positions. When German armor concentrated, Americans would call for air support that might not arrive. If pressure increased, Americans would retreat like at Guettar. The German tanks had superior firepower and armor protection. German 75mm guns could penetrate Sherman armor at 2,000 yards. Sherman guns needed to close to 500 yards for effective penetration. The technical advantage in firepower was decisive in open desert terrain. German artillery prepared fire plans to suppress American positions. The entire operation was designed to exploit what worked at Guettar. March 23, 1943. Dawn broke over Elgar. German forces advanced, expecting another victory. They were about to discover that 3 weeks was enough time to change everything that mattered. The German attack began at 6 a.m. Lead elements of the 10th Panzer Division rolled toward American positions held by the 1st Infantry Division, the Big Red One. Visibility was good. Terrain was favorable. Everything matched the operational plan. Then American artillery opened fire. Not ranging shots, not scattered fire. Coordinated time-on-target salvos that dropped multiple batteries on German positions simultaneously. Every gun in 2nd Corps could concentrate its fire on a single point at the exact same second. This level of artillery coordination was something German forces still relying heavily on horse-drawn artillery could not replicate. The accuracy was shocking. The volume was devastating. German tanks took direct hits. Radio operators heard urgent calls from infantry units requesting medical evacuation. On November 14, 1943, Beno hopped into his turret for a mission to Hong Kong. His confirmed kill tool stood at 7. His bomber carried 2,000 pounds bombs and 6 500-pound incendiaries. The target was Hong Kong Harbor, and waiting over the harbor were more Japanese Zeros than BO had ever seen in one place. The briefing had been short. 14 B-24 Liberators from the 308th Bomb Group would hit Japanese shipping in Hong Kong Harbor. Intelligence estimated light. Fighter opposition, maybe a dozen Zeros based at Kitiak Airfield. The bombers would approach from the north at 16,000 feet, drop their ordnance, turn for home. Intelligence was wrong. The Goon lifted off from Chang Kong at 0530 on November 14th. Pilot Captain Samuel Skousin held formation as the squadron climbed to altitude. Beno Test fired his guns over the mountains of southern China. Both 50s functioned perfectly. He had loaded fresh ammunition belts the night before. 1,000 rounds. No tracers. The flight to Hong Kong was 2 hours and 40 minutes. They crossed the Chinese coast at 14,000 feet and climbed to bombing altitude. The South China Sea stretched gray and empty below them. At 8:10, the bombers caught sight of Hong Kong Island through the clouds. Just 2 minutes later, the first Zeros showed up. The Japanese commanders at Kitiak were ready and had sent out every fighter they could. 34 Mitsubishi A6M Zeros climbed to meet the American bombers. Beno peered through his gun sight, counting more fighters than he had bullets four-way more than his squad could handle. This was going to be bad. The Zeros attacked in coordinated pairs. They had learned from previous encounters with American bombers. They no longer made single pass. They, Isuarameth. 2 fighters would attack from the nose, while 2 more came from the beam and 2 more from below. Overlapping fields of fire. Overwhelming defensive positions. The Zero swooped in quick and low. Beno locked on and unleashed a burst. The engine exploded into pieces. The fighter snapped, inverted, and fell. 1 down. 2 more Zeros attacked from the right. Bo rotated his turret and caught the leader with a concentrated burst to the cockpit. The second Zero broke off. 2 down. A Zero made a head-on pass at the Goon. Beno could not bring his top turret to bear on a target directly ahead. He watched the nose gunner's tracers stream toward the fighter. The Zero's guns flashed. 20mm rounds punched through the Goon's nose section. The bombardier, First Lieutenant Malcolm Sanders, took a direct hit. He died instantly. 3 Zeros attacked from below. Benko rotated his turret downward and fired at the leader. The burst hit the Zero's wing root. The wing folded and the fighter tumbled away. 3 down. The formation was falling apart. B-24s spread across 10 miles of sky, with some heading back to China. Others pressed on toward the target. Japanese fighters pursued them all. Beno fired constantly. Short controlled bursts, traverse, and fire in just 4 seconds. A Zero exploded, 4 down. Another fell away. Trailing smoke, 5 down. The Goon's number 3 engine began losing oil pressure. Black smoke streamed from the cowling. Captain Skousin shut it down and feathered the propeller. The bomber slowed. They were falling behind the formation. Falling behind meant dying alone. Japanese fighters concentrated on stragglers. Benko knew what was coming. He rotated his turret and waited. 6 Zeros peeled off from the main battle and dove toward the Goon. Beno counted them, checked his ammunition counter. 400 rounds remaining. He would need every single one. The 6 Zeros came in waves. 2 from above, 2 from the beam, 2 from below. Classic Japanese fighter tactics, overwhelming a single target from multiple angles. Benko took the Hyper first. They dove out of the sun at 400 miles per hour. He led the first Zero by 3 aircraft lengths and fired. The burst caught the fighter's engine. Flames erupted from the cowling. The Zero rolled onto its back and fell away, burning. 6 down. The second Zero from above broke right. Beno tracked him through the turn and fired a 2C burst. The rounds walked across the Zero's fuselage. The canopy shattered. The fighter went into a flat spin. 7 down. The beam attack came from the left. 2 Zeros. In tight formation, they opened fire at 1,200 yards. Their 20mm rounds tore through the Goon's left wing. Hydraulic fluid sprayed across the aluminum skin. Benko rotated his turret and engaged the leader. His first burst missed. He corrected and fired again. The Zero's wing exploded. 8 down. The second Zero from the beam continued his attack run. His guns flashed. Rams punched through the Goon's tail section. The rudder shredded. Captain Skousin fought to keep the bomber level. Beno fired at the attacking Zero in a quick 3-second burst. The rounds hit its fuel tank, and it exploded in a fiery ball. 9 down. The 2 Zeros from below pulled up hard, with one sneaking right under the Goon where Beno's top turret couldn't hit him. The other climbed for another pass. Beno rotated his turret to track the climbing Zero. His ammunition count had read 140 rounds. He squeezed the trigger. Nothing happened. The guns had jammed. He cleared the jam in 8 seconds, pulled the charging handles, recharged both weapons. The Zero was 500 yards out and closing. Beno fired. The burst shredded the Zero's tail section. The fighter spun out of control. 10 aircraft damaged or destroyed in 12 minutes. But the Goon was dying. Number 3, engine dead. Number 4, engine overheating. Hydraulics failing. Rudder damaged. The bomber was losing altitude at 300 ft per minute. Captain Skousin called the crew on the intercom. They were 40 meters from the Chinese coast. He did not know if the bomber would make it. He ordered everyone to prepare, to bail out. Benko looked down at the South China Sea. Japanese patrol boats moved between the islands. The water was cold. If they sunk, Japanese boats would be there in an hour. Capture meant pain, execution. He had heard the stories. The Goon crossed the coastline at 8,000 feet, still losing altitude. Captain Skousin aimed for Quain Airfield, 160 miles inland. The number 4 engine began throwing sparks. At 6,000 feet, the number 4 engine caught fire. Flames streamed past the wing. The fire suppression system failed. "Captain!" Skousin shouted. "Bail out now!" First Lieutenant Ralph Bowers jumped first. He jumped from the nose hatch, and his parachute deployed clean. The navigator, First Lieutenant Daniel Palmer, followed. Bingo climbed down from his turret. Technical Sergeant William Novak was already at the waistgun window, with 3 crew members lined up behind him. Bingo grabbed his parachute pack. The bomber was at 4,000 feet when he reached the hatch. Below him was occupied China. Japanese troops controlled every village, every road, every rice paddy. "Captain!" Skousen shouted from the cockpit. He was staying with the aircraft. He would try to land it at Quaylin. The engineer, Technical Sergeant Archie Fleherty, stayed with him. So did Novak. Bingo looked at the burning engine, looked at the 3,800 feet. He made his decision. He jumped. His parachute deployed at 3,000 feet. He drifted down toward the hills of southern China and toward whatever was waiting for him on the ground. Benko hit the ground in a bamboo grove 17 miles northeast of Hong Kong. He rolled to absorb the impact, cut away his parachute harness, gathered the silk canopy, and stuffed it under a fallen log. Japanese patrols would be searching for American airmen. A white parachute visible from the air meant capture within hours. He checked his survival kit, compass, water purification tablets, silk escape map of southern China, $47 in Chinese currency, a small pistol with 1 magazine, 8 rounds. The 308th Bomb Group had briefed all air crews on evasion procedures. Mob at night, avoid roads and villages. Head north toward Free China. Chinese guerrillas operated in the mountains. They would help downed American airmen reach nationalist lines. Bano checked his compass, pointing north up the ridge. He walked 3 miles before sunset through steep, thick vegetation. No trails. He heard voices in the valley below. Japanese or Chinese, he could not tell. He kept climbing. At dusk, he found a position in thick underbrush and stopped to rest. He hadn't eaten since breakfast in Chang Kong, 13 hours ago. With no food in his survival kit, he drank from a stream and settled in to wait for nightfall. He thought about the goon, whether Captain Skousen had made it to Quay, whether the crew who bailed out had survived, whether anyone was searching for him. He did not know that 5 of the 7 crew members who bailed out were already safe. Copelat Bowers had landed near a Chinese village. The villagers hid him for 2 days. Then guerrillas escorted him to nationalist lines. Navigator Palmer made it out. Waist Gunner Staff Sergeant Casper Tehiel did his part, as did Tail Gunner Technical Sergeant Robert Kirk and Observer Captain James Edney. Little did they know, Captain Skousen had pulled off a miracle. Despite the dead engine and fire damage and shredded controls, Skousen had wrestled the goon to the runway at Quay. The landing gear gave way on landing, skidding 1,500 feet before stopping just 50 yards from the barrier. Skousen, Fleherty, and Novak walked away without injuries. The goon would never fly combat again, but the crew had survived. He did not know that Bombay Sanders was the only man who died in the aircraft, or that he and Sanders were the only 2 casualties from the mission. What Binko did know was that he was alone in occupied China with a pistol and 8 bullets. At midnight, he resumed walking. He followed the ridgeline north. The moon gave enough light to navigate. He moved slowly, carefully. Every sound made him freeze. Every shadow could be a Japanese patrol. By dawn, he had covered another 7 miles. He found a hidden spot on the hill and crashed from exhaustion. He'd been up for 26 hours, flown a combat mission, jumped from a damaged bomber, and walked 10 meters through enemy territory. He slept for 3 hours. Then voices woke him, close, maybe 50 yards downslope. He looked through the brush. 6 men in uniform moving up the trail. Japanese infantry. They were combing the hillside carefully. One had a white silk parachute, but it wasn't his. Someone else from the crew. Bano pressed himself flat against the ground. The patrol passed within 30 feet. They did not see him, but they were moving in the direction he needed to go, north, between him and Free China. He waited 2 hours. Then he tried to move around the patrol's position. He made it half a mile before he heard dogs barking. Japanese troops used dogs to track down airmen. The barking grew louder as Binko took off running. The dogs were on his trail, barking wildly. Voices shouted behind him, and he pushed himself to run even faster. He ran 200 yards before hitting a cliff, dropping 20 feet to the river below. No way out now. The dogs were just 100 yards behind and closing in fast. Bano glanced at the water, then at his pistol, and made his choice. He jumped. The river was shallow, 4 feet deep. Bano hit the water hard. The current pulled him downstream. He surfaced and swam for the far bank. The dogs reached the cliff's edge above him, their barking echoing off the rocks as Japanese soldiers appeared on the ledge. They fired. Rifle rounds slapped the water around him. Beno dove under and kicked hard. The current carried him around a bend. He came up for air and kept swimming. He made it to the far bank and climbed out. His clothes were soaked. His pistol was gone. Lost in the river. He ran into the forest and kept moving. The pursuit continued for 3 hours. Japanese patrols had spread across the valley. They knew an American airman was in the area. They had found parachutes. They had tracking dogs. They had radio communication between patrol units. Beno had wet clothes and no weapon. He tried to circle north. Japanese troops blocked his way as he tried to move west. More soldiers were closing in, tightening the net around him. Classic tactics for hunting down enemies. By mid-afternoon on November 15th, Beno was exhausted. He had not eaten in 32 hours. He had walked and run nearly 20 miles through mountainous terrain. He had no water, no food, no weapon, and he was surrounded. At 1600 hours, a Japanese patrol found him hiding in a ravine 3 miles from where he had landed. He had no chance to fight or run. He gave up. The Japanese soldiers tied his hands and took him to their command post. They searched him and found his dog tags. Technical Sergeant Arthur J. Beno, serial number 6,917,171, 374th Bomb Squadron, 308. Bomb Group. Japanese intelligence officers knew about the 308th Bomb Group. They knew about the November 14th raid on Hong Kong. They knew American bombers had attacked the harbor. They wanted information, targets, bases, squadron, strength, future operations. Beno gave them his name, rank, and serial number. Nothing else. What happened to Arthur Beno after his capture is documented only in Japanese military records recovered after the war. He was classified as killed in action. His body was never recovered. He was 32 years old. Bombardier Malcolm Sanders, who died when his aircraft was hit over Hong Kong, was the only other fatality from the goon's final mission. The 5 other crew members who bailed out all made it to safety. Captain Scotian's emergency landing at Kowloon saved 3 lives, including his own. The goon sat damaged at Quay for 2 months. The 308th Bomb Group stripped the bomber for parts. The aircraft was eventually repaired enough to fly non-combat missions. It served as a transport for the rest of the war. In 1946, the goon crashed into the Philippine Sea while flying supplies. 4 crew members died. The bomber that had survived Hong Kong finally went down. But in November 1943, as the goon limped back to Quay and Arthur Beno disappeared into Japanese custody, nobody in the 14th Air Force knew the final count from the Hong Kong mission. Intelligence officers reviewed gun camera footage from all surviving B-24Es. They interviewed returning gunners. They compiled combat reports. They counted confirmed kills. Beno's top turret cameras had recorded the entire engagement. Intelligence officers watched the footage frame by frame. They counted each 0 hit, each fighter destroyed. They verified each kill against witness statements from other crew members who had seen the Japanese fighters go down. The final tally was 9 confirmed aerial victories for Technical Sergeant Arthur Beno on November 14, 1943. With his 7 confirmed kills from the Haiyang raid on October 31st, his total now stands at 16 confirmed kills. No other bomber gunner in the United States Army Air Forces had ever achieved that score. Fighter pilots with 16 kills received Distinguished Service Crosses. Some received Medals of Honor. Their names appeared in newspapers. Their faces appeared in newsreels. Arthur Beno had beaten every fighter-aced record for enlisted gunners in the Pacific, and he had done it without a single tracer round giving away his position. The question was whether anyone would remember. In January 1944, National Geographic published a feature story on the 308th Bomb Group. The article included a photograph of the goon's crew standing in front of their bomber at Chang Kong Airfield. Back row, 4th from left, Technical Sergeant Arthur Beno. The caption identified him as missing in action. The article mentioned record, 16 confirmed kills, highest scoring bomber gunner in the 14th Air Force. It mentioned his innovation, removing tracer rounds from his ammunition, creating invisible fire that Japanese pilots could not track. By the time the magazine reached American newsstands, Beno's modification had spread through the entire 14th Air Force, then to the 10th Air Force in India, then to the 20th Air Force flying B-29 missions against Japan. Thousands of bomber gunners ditched their tracers, and guess what? Loss rates for aerial gunners dropped by 18% in early 1944. Beno's squadron commanders submitted a recommendation for the Medal of Honor. The recommendation cited 16 confirmed aerial victories, combat action under fire, innovation that saved American lives, leadership that influenced tactics across multiple air forces. The recommendation moved up through channels. 14th Air Force Headquarters approved it. China, Burma, India, Theater Headquarters approved it. It reached the War Department in Washington in March 1944. The War Department denied the Medal of Honor. Their reasoning was documented in the official response. Aerial gunners, regardless of kill count, did not qualify for the nation's highest award under existing criteria. The Medal of Honor was reserved for actions involving extreme risk beyond normal combat duties, shooting down enemy aircraft from a defensive gun position. Even 16 aircraft did not meet that threshold. Fighter pilots with 16 kills received Distinguished Service Crosses. Some received Medals of Honor. The difference was that fighter pilots were officers. Gunners were enlisted men. The War Department never stated this officially, but the pattern was clear in the awards records. Buell received the Silva Stare. The citation praised his exceptional aerial gunnery skill and his innovative removal of tracer ammunition. He received the Legion of Merit for his contribution to bomber defensive tactics. He received the Purple Heart for being killed in action. His wife received the medals at a ceremony in Bisbee, Arizona in June 1944. Their 12-year-old daughter stood beside her. Local newspapers covered the event. Then the story faded. After the war, the Air Force compiled statistics on aerial gunner effectiveness. Technical Sergeant Michael Ereth of the 379th Bomb Group held the highest confirmed kill count in the European theater, 17 victories. Ereth survived the war. Arthur Beno held the highest confirmed kill count among gunners killed in action, 16 victories, second highest overall in the entire United States Army Air Forces. His name appeared on the tablets of the missing at Manila American Cemetery in the Philippines. His body was never recovered from China. The Japanese kept poor records of prisoners executed in forward areas. Beno's fate was officially listed as killed in action November 5, 1943. No other details. Bisbee, Arizona erected a memorial after the war, a cenotaph on Highway 90. Between the Old Town and New Town, Arthur Beno's name was carved into the stone. Hometown hero, killed defending China from Japanese invasion. In 1948, the newly independent Republic of China erected the monument of the aviation martyrs in the War of Resistance against Japan and over 2,000 American airmen had died defending China between 1941 and 1945. Arthur Beno's name was among them, but in America, Beno faded from memory. Fighter aces became famous. Their names filled history books. Richard Bone, Tommy Maguire, Gregory Boynton, all household names, all officers, all pilots. Bomber gunners were forgotten. Even the ones who had changed how aerial warfare was fought. Even the ones who had saved hundreds of lives with a simple innovation. Even the ones who held records that would never be broken. Arthur Beno's daughter never married. She died young. The family line ended. The competitive shooting trophies from the 1930s disappeared. The Arizona State Rifle Championship medal was lost. The photographs from Shinkong Airfield survived only in military archives. By 2025, most Americans had never heard of Arthur Beno. Most military historians focused on fighter pilots and bomber commanders. Enlisted gunners received footnotes, but the innovation survived. Modern military aircraft still avoid using tracer ammunition in situations where revealing gun positions creates tactical disadvantage. The principle Beno proved in 1943 remains valid. Invisible fire is more effective than fire that advertises its source. One man's refusal to follow standard procedure. One man's trust in his own training. One man's stupid ammo trick. 16 confirmed kills and a legacy that outlived his forgotten name. The last photograph of Arthur Beno shows him standing beside the goon at Jiangkong Airfield in late October 1943, 2 weeks before Hong Kong. He is 32 years old. His arms are crossed. His expression is calm. He looks like exactly what he was, a man who knew his craft better than anyone else in the sky. The photograph was taken for National Geographic. The magazine wanted to document American bomber crews in China. They wanted heroic images. Men standing beside their aircraft. Men who were winning the war in the Pacific. Beno was not trying to be heroic. He was trying to survive. And he understood something that most gunners never learned. Survival in aerial combat was not about courage. It was about mathematics, ballistics, probability, eliminating variables that got you killed. Tracer rounds were a variable. They showed enemy fighters exactly where you were. They turned defensive gunnery into a beacon that said, "Come kill me." Beno removed that variable. The rest was training. 15 years of competitive shooting, thousands of hours at rifle ranges, loading his own ammunition, understanding trajectory, wind, lead time, bullet drop, all of that transferred directly to aerial gunnery. While other gunners relied on glowing tracers to show them where their rounds were going, Beno already knew. That knowledge kept him alive through 17 missions. It gave him 16 confirmed kills. It changed how the entire United States Army Air Forces thought about defensive gunnery, and it died with him in occupied China at age 32. The 308th Bomb Group flew missions for another 20 months after Beno disappeared. They bombed Japanese shipping. They bombed railroads. They bombed supply depots. Gunners continued removing their tracers. Loss rates stayed lower than they had been before Halloween 1943. Nobody talked much about why they were removing tracers. The modification had become standard procedure. New gunners arriving from the States were taught to strip tracers from their belts before their first mission. It was just how things were done. The origin of the practice faded into squadron lore. In 1997, a military historian researching bomber defensive tactics found Beno's combat reports in the National Archives. The historian published a paper on aerial gunnery innovations. Bo's name appeared in academic journals. Military history websites picked up the story. A few researchers began documenting his record. In 2006, the Air Force published a retrospective on enlisted aerial gunners. Author Beno was featured. 16. Confirmed. His innovative tactics killed in action. November 5th, 10th, 1943. His cenotaph still stands on Highway 90 in Bisbee. Travelers occasionally stop to read the inscription. Most do not recognize the name. A few take photographs. Fewer still understand what he accomplished. If this story moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor, hit that like button. Every single like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We are rescuing forgotten stories from dusty archives every single day. Stories about gunners who saved lives with innovation. Real people. Real heroism. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you are watching from. Are you watching from the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia? Our community stretches across the entire world. You are not just a viewer. You are a part of keeping these memories alive. Tell us your location. Tell us if someone in your family served. Just let us know you are here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for making sure Arthur B.O. does not disappear into silence.